Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining me, Abby Shasaw, in this client reporting Prepare to Succeed. Technology has been recognized as a vital enabler within the client reporting process. But are you really ready for some of the biggest gains that technology can introduce? That is to say, automation. As you no doubt know, better and more effective reporting and communication continues to be one of those tools that can be readily leveraged by firms to enhance market positioning and build reputation. Increasingly, reporting is used to spearhead client communication strategies. Well used, it enables astute managers to stay ahead of the competition. From that, the role of reporting and its importance, therefore, is clear. It is something you will want to get right. From the first kickoff meeting of your implementation project, all the way through to going live, and then on to follow-up project reviews, you will want to do everything you can to make sure you deliver a successful project. Before you take the plunge and re-engineer your client reporting, here are some important questions to consider that will help you prepare to succeed. Many of these questions are central to broader topics which merit in-depth treatment in their own right, and perhaps we'll do that in future sessions. Today, we will talk about the most important areas to consider, discuss, and to factor into your thinking as you prepare. Note, therefore, that today's discussion is not exhaustive. Coming back to today, we will visit a few general points, that is, principles that transcend the reporting endeavor as a whole. We will also look at some preparatory steps that are more specific, more practical things, which, because they seem so obvious, are easy to underestimate or even omit altogether, usually at some cost, which may be in pound terms, though not always, maybe in lost time, or maybe elevated project risk, or even all three. And finally, we will look at what I call the futurescape and peek ahead at factors that are most likely to impact the role of reporting, and in particular, reporting designed for client consumption. The first, and as I would have it, the most important thing to think about is data. In this discussion, we will restrict ourselves to data when it is made available for reporting, or when it arrives in whatever condition, as opposed to the wider contexts within the greater organization. We will leave that out of scope for this discussion. But first, to remind you, there are a number of challenges for any firm going into a client reporting project. One such potential problem area is interfacing with data sources. That is, handling data from external sources such as benchmark, data vendors, third-party administrators, third-party vendor systems, for example, risk, or performance applications, or various in-house systems. And we can include in that list data from sundry internal silo-type sources as well, because although we all like to pretend that they don't exist, we know they do, and therefore we must reckon with them. So what about it? What about data interfacing? Well, data interfacing can at times require some bespoke coding on the part of the reporting software provider. Asset managers are sometimes offered options that increase project risk more than they need to. For example, customization to core code, which is a direct threat to stability and therefore represent project risk. Or sometimes they're offered so-called data interface options that are over-prescriptive and lack flexibility, or that cannot scale. In the past, we have even come across a situation where a firm was told it can't be done. In reality, the real issue is to do with the way software has been engineered in the first place. The ability to leverage custom plugins for retrieving external data without destabilizing the rest of core code is the key. Virtually every external data sourcing issue can be overcome by this approach of using data plugins. This substantially reduces project risk at implementation time and serves to protect the project. Reporting vendors should not need to rewrite entire sections of their code for each implementation. Asset managers should not have to deal with the delays that this process inevitably causes, nor should their important reporting project have to sustain the attendant risks. Efficient data interfacing does not require new destabilizing code every time, and nor should it rely on extensive manual processing, which is both expensive and fraught with operational risk. The second important general point is also to do with data, but that isn't surprising. Why? Because regardless of the nature of the reports you're looking to automate, one simple fact holds true. It is all about the data, always. In order to automate the production of your reports, you need to have comprehensive data sources which are available in machine-readable formats and which are consistently presented. It is also important not to simply attempt to shoehorn your existing data sources into your new automated processes. The key attributes we're looking for from suitable data sources are that they are stable, that is to say consistent, that they are reliable, that is to say of known and trusted origin, and as far as possible, not dependent on any manual processes prior to presentation for reporting. You may be surprised to learn that most additional manual processing adds only superficial value to the original data, such as formatting or simple formula-based calculations or filtering, much of which is either redundant and of no value in automation, or which can simply be and easily be replaced. Rather than relying on spreadsheets and other local data silos that, quote unquote, have always been there, ask yourself, from where does that data originate, and whether that source has a continuing role in your reporting going forward, and whether that original source is better placed to feed your new automated process directly. The net effect of selecting out unreliable or unstable sources of data, or data that is over-reliant on manual maintenance by its owner, will be reduced opportunities for data inconsistency, reduced error rates, and mitigated process risk. Projects that are most likely to succeed and most likely to meet or exceed delivery expectations are those that have a clear vision and that set clear endpoints or objectives. That principle of clarity of defined objectives and goals is behind my next 6 points. Let's look at each in turn. We're talking about client reports as our primary deliverable, so let's focus on that first, or rather its makeup beyond data, which we've just been talking about. The thing that drives the makeup of a client report is its template, or boilerplate if you prefer. In most scenarios, multiple clients' reports will be driven by one template, or possibly even multiple templates that drive sections of reports. Those templates will need to be created so that they can support the rendering of every report variant required. This will have a number of significant impacts. Firstly, the more report templates that need to be created, the longer the implementation will take. In all likelihood, this will also impact cost. Now is the perfect time to consider rationalization and what level of consolidation might be appropriate. Secondly, automating your reporting processes necessarily means that your reports will be consistently rendered from reporting cycle to reporting cycle, whether that is monthly or quarterly. It would be prudent to check that this is in line with the requirements of all key stakeholders. Remember that consistency is your friend, process rigor and process discipline, and all that it delivers is where you need to be, and not the risk-laden alternatives without those structured approaches. Just because you've always done things in a certain way doesn't mean that things couldn't be done better. Using automation for reporting requires acceptance of the procedural changes that entails. This is the ideal time to consider more efficient approaches. There is no need to perpetuate past failings. The important message here is to prepare for that change and to embrace it. This is one of those fundamental elements of preparing to succeed in client reporting that is sometimes underestimated or at times overlooked. In order to get the most out of your automated process, you will need to carry out wholesale reviews of everything, all the requisite parts, from report structure and content, production scheduling, process design, content delivery, to report sign-off. And then you need to take your stakeholders with you on that journey. This is important not only to neutralize a potential headwind of their resistance, but also to avoid putting in place new processes that inherit the deficiencies of your legacy processes. An important success factor is resourcing. As we said at the top, you will want to do everything you can to make sure you deliver a successful project. And that includes making sure you have the right amount of the right resources. It includes identifying the roles and skill sets that you will need to provide the various functions. Unfortunately, this also includes subject matter experts and practitioners. They're likely to be the beneficiaries of the new project. Their contribution to the project will be important, but they're also most likely to be tied up with the business as usual, or BAU, of your current process. The paradox here should be recognized and addressed, lest it becomes a project constraint. The important question here is, how will you balance the needs of the new project with the ever-pressing needs of BAU? It is always tempting to think of automated reporting as capable of unlimited capacity. It is not. It is simply one side of the triple constraint triangle that I'm sure you're familiar with. So note well that this item should be woven into the very fabric of your planning, rather than being a one-step box tick. The important point I would emphasize here is that you should attach this question to each of the areas we've just been discussing. That is, definitions of deliverables, process design, resourcing, and of course, data. As part of your presentation preparation plans, you would be well advised to include post-implementation reviews. You should make sure that you set out a clear understanding of your needs as a business with measurable objectives and goals. This is the right time to take a critical view of what you have achieved with respect to those challenges that we posed at the outset. This is how to know whether the better future that you imagined at the outset has been reached, or whether it remains elusive or some distance away. Client reporting is often seen as the sterile end of the investment process, a cost of doing business rather than an area that can add value for the end investor. This perception is flawed. Closer examination of the needs of the investor, and perhaps to the objectives of the act of reporting itself, reveals a deeper role and relevance of the humble client report. Here are a few factors that I believe will influence the future evolution of client reporting and the obstacles that the investment industry needs to overcome. Every client engagement point is an opportunity for firms to improve and increase what they know about their client. It is also an opportunity for them to update their assessment on suitability, to re-engage with the client, and, as opportunities dictate, to review the information shared with that client through reporting. In other words, a shifted view that begins to connect what firms know about their client with service provision and reporting. The best investment firms will tackle client reporting from a client-centric perspective, as opposed to one driven by processes or products. There are signs that this progression is underway and that it will continue. There is also an imperative to provide clients with a single view of their investment performance. Consolidated reporting of all of a client's financial affairs through a single portal would be hugely convenient. And we're not just talking about a consolidated view of current and savings accounts on a smartphone, but it would also enhance the investment approach that the client receives through more informed asset allocation. As an industry, we have tinkered with these approaches in the past. The difference now is that the technology enabler is much more available and more advanced. Investment commentary today still focuses very much on data and fact, which is all well and good. However, reporting needs to evolve more towards the value-added area of providing commentary on why those facts have arisen and answering the so what questions and what action may I need to take. It is this type of forward-looking guidance that will move the conversation up the value chain. Future client reporting will be investor demand-led as opposed to investment manager-led. Therefore, clients will demand reporting that is necessarily entirely tailored to their needs. This progression is natural. It is what today's experience and reliance on technology in every aspect of our lives leads us to expect. Client expectations from investment managers are continuing to evolve, and they're not being driven by asset or wealth managers themselves, but by the context and culture within which they operate. It will prove hard to resist. Now, at the outset, I mentioned that the increasing and crucial role of reporting and communication. So far, we have talked about the former, but note that ultimately they are strongly linked. We can talk more about how next time. Now, to conclude, the direction of travel for client reporting has to be an interactive model, driven by the client rather than the product or asset class silo. The biggest obstacle to good financial decision-making is navigating the complexity of a client's financial existence. Client reporting should and will reduce this complexity to facilitate better, more focused investment decision-making. Thank you for joining me today.